The studio lights were colder than Brandon Terrell remembered. They always were. Too white, too sharp, too artificial. The kind of brightness that made every pore on a face look like it was being interrogated. But today, the air was different. The building felt tight around him, like the walls had moved an inch closer overnight. He sat there, staring at his reflection in the glossy black of the desk in front of him, trying to draw a breath into lungs that didn't seem interested in cooperating. He had been coached all morning. Smiled gently, nod politely. Keep your answers crisp, avoid emotional triggers. But now, with only minutes before the cameras flipped on, all those instructions evaporated like mist. A makeup artist dabbed his forehead. "You okay, Brandon?" she asked softly. He nodded because nodding required less explanation than speaking. "Yeah, fine." But he wasn't fine. He had not been fine for months. The truth had been eating at him, a slow, corrosive burn just beneath the skin. He felt it every time someone called him first son, every time someone commented on how tall he had grown, how much he resembled President Donovan Terrell, how proud his father must be. Every single remark scratched at him like fine sandpaper. He knew the truth, or at least he thought he did. Suspicion had become certainty. Certainty had become torment, and torment had driven him here, to what he was about to do. Across the studio floor, cameras glided silently on their tracks. Technicians whispered into headsets, and the host, Lena Marin, rehearsed her opening monologue. She smiled at Brandon, warm, friendly, unsuspecting. She had no idea her live show was about to become the most replayed broadcast of the decade. Brandon's heart thrummed unevenly. He rubbed his palms on his trousers and glanced down. They were shaking, not lightly, violently. His body was betraying him, but he didn't care anymore. Today was the day everything cracked open. Today, he was going to stop pretending. He heard the countdown. Going live in 30, 29, 28. Brandon's breath caught. He looked at the side of the stage where a monitor displayed President Donovan Terrell's face, smiling at a rally from last week. A smile that millions adored. A smile that built an empire of influence. To the world, Donovan was unshakable, unstoppable, a leader carved out of steel. To Brandon, he had become a question mark that wouldn't go away. 10 seconds. Lena shifted in her chair and whispered, "Relax, okay? We'll keep it light." Brandon nodded again. Light. There was nothing light about what he was about to do. Nothing gentle. Nothing rational. He felt like a dam about to burst. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The red light blinked on, and the world opened its eyes to him. Lena faced the camera, full smile. "Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Spectrum One Live. Tonight, we have a special guest, someone who rarely speaks publicly, someone people are endlessly curious about. Brandon Terrell is here with us. Brandon, thank you for joining." Brandon managed a thin smile. "Thanks for having me." His voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Lena continued, "There's a lot happening in your family lately. Public events, speeches, the campaign heating up again. Everyone wants to know how you're doing, how you're handling the spotlight. A normal question, a safe question." But Brandon felt a tremor in his throat, as if something inside him was clawing to escape. "I'm handling it," he said. "Or trying to. Trying." He swallowed. His eyes drifted down, then up, then over the cameras and back to the host. "It's been complicated." Lena nodded empathetically. "That's understandable. You grew up with more attention than most people could handle. But you've always been described as quiet, thoughtful, grounded." "I'm not grounded." The words slipped out before he could stop them. Lena blinked, startled. "What do you mean?" Brandon exhaled shakily. He hadn't planned this part. He hadn't planned any of it beyond the moment he would pick up the phone on the desk. It sat there innocently, screen down, looking like any ordinary smartphone. But his world depended on it. "I mean," Brandon whispered, "I've been living under something that I can't carry anymore." The crew behind the cameras stiffened. Lena's shoulders lifted slightly. Something was shifting. Everyone sensed it. "Brandon," she said carefully, "if you're comfortable sharing—" "I'm not comfortable. That's the point." His breathing quickened. The lights above him blurred. A ringing sound filled his ears. Lena reached to place a hand on his arm, but he flinched away. "I'm sorry," he muttered. This isn't what I came here to talk about. I can't pretend anymore." The audience watching from home would later say they felt chills right at that moment. Something in his tone, the fragility mixed with determination, signaled that the interview had derailed into something unprecedented. Lena cleared her throat subtly. "Well, you're welcome to share whatever you feel you need to. We're here to listen." Brandon stared at the camera. Millions of people stared back. "Okay," he said, voice breaking. "Then I will." He reached slowly for the phone on the desk. The motion felt heavy, like lifting stone. His fingers trembled as they brushed the device. Lena's eyes widened. "Brandon, what are you doing?" His chest constricted. "I'm calling him." "Him?" "My father." A murmur rippled across the studio. Off-camera producers leaned toward monitors with sudden urgency. Lena raised a hand gently. "Brandon, if this is about something personal, we don't have to do this on air." "No," his voice cracked. "No, I do have to. Today. Right now." He tapped the screen and brought up Donovan Terrell's private number. His thumb hovered over the call button. "Brandon, maybe we should." But he pressed it. The ringing tone echoed across the studio speakers. Once, twice, 3 times. Everyone held their breath. Click. A familiar voice, deep and authoritative, filled the room. "Brandon, why are you calling from the studio? Is everything all right?" Brandon stared forward, tears gathering. "No," he whispered. "Nothing's all right." Lena looked between him and the camera, unsure whether to intervene. President Donovan Terrell continued. "What's going on?" Brandon swallowed the knot in his throat. "I need to ask you something. Ask me privately." Donovan said sharply, "This isn't the place." Brandon shook his head, voice trembling. "It has to be now." "Brandon, I need a DNA test." The studio gasped, not figuratively, but literally. A wave of shock spread like electricity through the room. Lena froze, her eyes wide. The camera crew exchanged frantic looks. The control room erupted in whispers. But Brandon kept going. "I need a DNA test," he repeated, louder this time. "I need to know if you're really my father." Silence. The kind of silence that feels alive, charged, heavy, unforgiving. Donovan's voice finally returned, lower, tighter. "Brandon, stop this. We will discuss whatever you think you discovered, but not on live television." Tears slipped down Brandon's cheeks. He didn't wipe them. "I can't wait anymore." "Son, don't call me that." Brandon suddenly shouted, the sound cracking and echoing. Everyone flinched. "Don't call me that unless you can prove it. I've spent months wondering if my entire life is a lie." "Brandon, calm down." "No, I won't calm down. Not when you've been hiding things from me my whole life." Lena mouthed silently toward the producers. "Cut the feed." But the producers shook their heads. Orders were coming from higher up. The world was watching. This was a seismic moment. They couldn't cut away now. Brandon's sobs broke through the air as he leaned forward. "I found things," he choked. "Documents, dates, photos, things that don't add up. Things that make me look at Mom differently. Things that make me look at you differently. And I can't sleep anymore because I don't know what's real." Donovan's voice wavered, barely detectable, but it was the first time anyone in the world had ever heard the Iron President shaken. "Brandon," he said slowly, "put the phone down. Come home. We will talk." "You're not listening." Brandon shouted. "You never listen. You just command. You control everything and everyone. But you don't get to control this. Not anymore." He wiped his face with trembling hands, the motion frantic. "I need to hear you say it. Right now. Will you take a DNA test with me? Yes or no?" The question hung like a blade, suspended mid-fall. Donovan didn't answer. "Dad?" Brandon whispered. The word was small, fractured, a wounded child inside a collapsing young man. Still no answer. Brandon broke. A guttural sob ripped from him. Not the dignified grief of a public figure, but the raw, unshielded sound of a trapped soul reaching its breaking point. "This lie has to be faced," he cried. "I can't carry it anymore. I can't live like this." The control room was chaos. Phones ringing, producers shouting, network executives barging in, the live chat feed online exploding in real time. But Brandon didn't hear any of it. He only heard silence on the other end of the call, the silence of a man who had built a life, a legacy, an entire nation on strength and cert, now confronted with the one thing he couldn't command: truth, or the fear of it. Finally, Donovan spoke, voice low and icy. "End this, Brandon. Now." Brandon stared at the phone through tear-blurred eyes. Something inside him shattered completely. "No," he whispered. "I'm done ending things quietly." He ended the call himself. Lena reached out again, gently. "Brandon." But he stood abruptly, chair scraping loudly across the floor, echoing like a gunshot in the silent studio. His legs wobbled. His breathing was messy, uneven, desperate. He looked around the studio with a hollow expression, at the cameras, the lights, the people who had just witnessed his implosion. Then he said it, the words that would replay endlessly across the world. "This lie has to be faced." He pushed away from the desk, and he walked off the set, not storming, not running, just walking slowly, brokenly, like someone carrying the weight of an entire collapsing universe on his shoulders. The cameras followed him until the very last second, capturing the silhouette of a young man stepping out of the bright lights into shadow, disappearing through the studio door as the world erupted into chaos behind him. The studio hallway swallowed Brandon whole. The moment the heavy, soundproof doors closed behind him, the noise of the stage, gasps, frantic whispers, producers barking orders, collapsed into a muffled blur. The silence on the other side of those doors was terrifying. Too empty, too still. He leaned against the wall, his chest heaving like he'd just sprinted miles. His hands shook uncontrollably, fingers twitching with leftover adrenaline. The floor felt unstable beneath him, as if the building itself were swaying, struggling to hold the weight of what had just happened. His vision wavered. The bright, sterile hallway light stretched into long stripes above him, making him feel small, like he wasn't standing in the headquarters of the country's largest media network, but in an endless white corridor leading nowhere. He slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor, knees pulled to his chest. He didn't know how long he sat there. Seconds? Minutes? The sound of his own breathing filled his ears, jagged, uneven, suffocating. His thoughts spun wildly, colliding into each other without coherence. Regret, rage, relief, terror, all tangled. He had done it. He had said it. He had torn the veil and exposed the question he'd been hiding inside himself for years. The question that had grown roots in him, wrapping around his ribs, squeezing until he couldn't breathe anymore. He knew the world was watching. He knew the world had opinions. But he couldn't think about that now. The door at the end of the hallway burst open. "Brandon?" Footsteps thundered toward him. Lena's voice panicked. Footsteps quick. He squeezed his eyes shut. He didn't want to see anyone. He didn't want to justify anything. Lena skidded to a stop in front of him, breathless. "Brandon, sweetheart, what just... Are you okay? I mean, obviously you're not okay, but oh my God, sit up, come here." She knelt beside him and reached for his arm. He recoiled instinctively at first, then let her help him sit straighter. Her eyes were wide and trembling, full of shock, fear, sympathy, and the kind of helplessness only someone watching a disaster in real time could feel. "I didn't know what you were planning," she whispered, voice cracking. "No one did. You scared everyone." Brandon shook his head weakly. "I didn't plan it. Not like that. I had to." Lena swallowed. "You know the network, the country, your family. There's going to be fallout. A lot of it." He gave a humorless laugh. "I know." She studied him carefully. "Brandon, why now? Why like that? What pushed you to this?" He didn't answer. Instead, he buried his face in his hands. A wave of nausea rolled through him. Lena softened. "Come on, let's get you somewhere private." He nodded. She helped him stand. His legs felt like paper. They walked down the hallway. Not slowly, not quickly, just moving because standing still hurt too much. She led him through a side door into a small green room. Quiet, dim, soft couches, a coffee table with untouched bottled water. She closed the door behind them. The silence hit him again. Brandon collapsed onto the couch, elbows on his knees, hands dangling. He felt empty, his emotions drained out of him so violently on live television that there was nothing left but an aching hollowness. Lena sat beside him, careful not to crowd him. "Brandon," she said gently, "whatever you think you discovered, it must have been serious." "It was," he whispered. "You don't have to tell me, but you should talk to someone. Anyone." He shook his head slowly. Talking never helped before. Maybe not to the right person. He stared at the carpet. "I don't know who the right person is anymore." Lena hesitated, then said softly, "Your father." Brandon tensed so violently she stopped mid-sentence. He lifted his head, eyes burning with exhaustion. "Don't call him that. Not until I know." Lena exhaled, choosing her next words with precision. "All right, Donovan." Even the name felt like a knife. "Do you think," she asked quietly, "he'll talk to you tonight?" Off camera, Brandon let out a long, trembling breath. "He won't talk. He'll command. He'll control. He'll turn this into something about image, optics, the election, public narrative. He always does." Lena bit her lip. "He's still your—" Brandon's voice cracked, but he held firm. "He might not be." Silence again. And then his phone buzzed violently. Not one notification. Not two. Hundreds. His screen pulsed nonstop. Calls, missed calls, messages flooding in like a tidal wave. The names flashed faster than he could read. Isabella, Ethan, Marissa, campaign advisors, unknown numbers, his father's office, government lines, news outlets. A heavy knock shook the door. Lena flinched. "Who?" Tara, the show's executive producer, burst in, face flushed. "Brandon, the building is surrounded by reporters. Every network is replaying the clip. Your father's motorcade is en route. Security is asking if you want to be escorted out." Brandon blinked. "He's coming here?" "Yes," Tara said. "And he's not coming quietly." Brandon felt the ground tilt again. Lena whispered, "Do you want to leave? We can get you out the back entrance." But Brandon didn't answer, because suddenly another memory flickered through his mind. 10 years ago, Marissa Terrell, his mother, closing a drawer quickly when he entered the room. A picture frame face down on a desk. Her startled expression. A fragment of conversation between his mother and her sister. He overheard through a cracked door. He can never know. Pieces. Just pieces. Pieces that had haunted him. Pieces that made his heart race now. Lena leaned forward. "Brandon, say something. Where do you want to go?" His mouth opened, but no words came, because he wasn't sure where he belonged anymore. Suddenly, another knock. Not frantic, not urgent. Soft. 3 taps. Slow. Measured. Lena stood, cautious. "Who is it?" A voice came through the door. A woman's voice. Calm, composed, with a polished elegance that made Brandon's blood run cold. "It's me, darling." Open the door. Marissa Terrell, his mother, his breath caught. Lena looked at him. "Do you want to see her?" Brandon's heart hammered. He didn't know the answer, because seeing her meant facing things he wasn't sure he was ready to face. But she knocked again, gently, insistently. "Brandon," she said softly, "please, we need to talk." His hands trembled. He nodded. Lena exhaled and opened the door slowly. Marissa Terrell stepped inside. Elegant, immaculate, serene, yet her eyes were red-rimmed, her makeup slightly smudged, as though she had been crying but didn't want anyone to see. She closed the door behind her, and then very slowly she turned toward her son, not with anger, not with indignation, but with something else, something that terrified him more than either of those. Guilt, real, unmistakable guilt. "Brandon," she whispered, her voice breaking, "what have you done?" He stared at her, breath trembling. What did you do? He whispered back. Her lips parted. Her eyes glistened. And she whispered, something I should have told you a long time ago. The room felt suddenly smaller, as if all the walls had leaned inward at once. The quiet hum of the air conditioner, the faint fluorescent buzz, the distant muffled chaos from the newsroom outside. Everything sharpened around Brandon until he could hear nothing except the pounding of his own heartbeat and his mother's trembling breath. Marissa Terrell stood in the center of the green room, perfectly dressed but visibly cracked beneath the surface. Her hands were clasped tightly in front of her, knuckles white, fingers twisting nervously. It was the most unsteady he had ever seen her. Marissa was the kind of woman who floated through chaos with the poise of a queen. Her emotions were always filtered, measured, symmetrical. But today she looked like someone who had run out of places to hide. Brandon remained frozen on the couch, staring up at her with wide, wounded eyes. He couldn't speak, couldn't breathe properly. His throat felt as if someone had tied a rope around it and pulled. Lena, sensing the weight of what was about to unfold, quietly stepped back toward the door, not leaving but giving them space. Her presence was small, silent, respectful. Marissa took a tentative step toward her son. Brandon, she whispered again, as if saying his name might anchor her. But it didn't. The word dissolved in the air, trembling. He swallowed hard, his voice barely audible. What do you mean something you should have told me? Her mouth trembled before she answered. I think you already know. Brandon's stomach twisted painfully. He shook his head, not because he disagreed, but because he needed to hear her say it. Needed the truth from the one woman he thought would never lie to him. I don't know anything. Not for sure. I only have questions. I need answers. A tiny sob escaped her lips. And I'm so sorry, she said, voice breaking. I'm sorry you had to reach a breaking point before I was forced to give them. Forced. The word hit him like a punch. He leaned forward slowly, elbows on knees, hands gripping tightly. Mom, just tell me. Marissa moved closer, then sat in a chair across from him. Her normally elegant posture collapsed. She looked fragile, brittle, as if one harsh breath would shatter her entirely. Her eyes locked onto his, the same soft hazel they shared, or used to share before doubt contaminated everything. Brandon, she began softly, you were born in a storm I never fully escaped. He frowned. What does that mean? She inhaled shakily. Before Donovan and I were married, before the campaigns, before the rise to power, my life was complicated. I had relationships. I had mistakes. And I had choices I wasn't proud of. Silence settled thickly between them. Brandon felt his pulse climb. Are you telling me you had an affair? Her eyes closed for a brief moment, a tear slipping free. Yes, a long time ago. He felt the ground tilt beneath him. He pressed a hand to his forehead. Mom. But listen to me, she said urgently, leaning forward. Listen carefully. It wasn't what you think. I was young, confused, vulnerable. Donovan and I were not married yet. We weren't even exclusive. It was a messy time, a time full of pressure and uncertainty. Brandon looked up at her sharply, hope flickering. So you say it was before? Before him? She hesitated. And in that hesitation, Brandon's flicker of hope died. Mom, when was it? His voice was shaking. When did this happen? She swallowed. Brandon, please. When, he demanded, louder, harsher than he intended. Marissa broke. In the early months of my pregnancy, she whispered. Before Donovan and I had officially reconciled. Before we were stable. Before the wedding plans. Before... She stopped, breath trembling. Before we became the family the world recognizes. Brandon felt like she had struck him. He stared at her, silent, numb, hollow. You mean... His voice barely existed. You don't know... Her eyes filled with tears. I never knew with certainty. He felt a hot sting behind his eyes. His heart hammered so violently he thought he might faint. I suspected, she continued quietly. But when Donovan insisted we keep everything private, when his advisors pushed for a united front, when his career skyrocketed and he proposed, I was told to keep the past buried, to protect you, to protect him, to protect all of us. Brandon's voice cracked. So you lied. She closed her eyes in shame. Yes. You lied to me my whole life. Yes, she whispered again. Something inside Brandon tore. It felt like a seam ripping down the middle of him, exposing nerves raw and bleeding. He stood abruptly, pacing the small room with an energy too volatile to contain. His hands tangled in his hair, pulling. Mom, how could you do that? How could you keep something like that from me? I lived 18 years believing in something that might not even be real. Marissa wiped her tears quickly, as if ashamed to show weakness. You were a child. What was I supposed to tell you? Your father might not be your father? How could that help you? It would have been the truth, he cried out, voice hoarse. The truth would have helped me. No, she said firmly, shaking her head. It would have destroyed you. You were so young, so sensitive, so easily overwhelmed. And Donovan, she looked down. Donovan would have reacted badly. You don't know how fiercely he guards his image, his lineage, his legacy. If he had known, really known, he might have pushed you away. Or worse. Brandon stopped pacing. He stared at her with disbelief, betrayal, heartbreak. You think I needed protecting from him? Marissa looked at him with a deep sorrow. Yes. Brandon's voice was barely a whisper. What does that say about him or about us? Marissa closed her eyes. A tear rolled down her cheek. It says you deserve more, she whispered. Brandon inhaled sharply, a broken, painful sound. He sank back onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. I can't believe this. This can't be happening. Marissa moved to sit beside him, reaching instinctively to hold him, but he flinched, pulling away. The rejection struck her like a slap. Brandon, she said softly, voice trembling. He shook his head violently. No, don't. Please. I need space. I can't let you touch me right now. She folded her hands in her lap and nodded slowly, accepting the quiet devastation. I understand. For a long time, they sat in silence. The kind of silence that fills every corner of a room, thick and suffocating. Brandon's breaths were shaky, uneven. Marissa's were strained, controlled. And Lena watched from near the door, realizing she was witnessing something she should never repeat to anyone. Eventually, Brandon looked up, exhausted. Who is he? Marissa blinked. Who? The man, Brandon said, voice hollow. The other man. The one who might be my real father. Marissa's throat tightened. Her hands twisted again. Brandon, I don't know if I'm ready. Ready? Brandon's voice was soft but sharp. I wasn't ready for any of this. But here we are. She looked down. I promised myself I'd take the secret to my grave. And now I'm the one dying from it, Brandon whispered. That broke her. Her composure collapsed completely. She covered her mouth, breathing unevenly. His name was Elias Mercer. Brandon froze. He whispered. Marissa nodded slowly. He passed away years ago, before you were old enough to remember anything. Brandon's breath caught painfully. So even if he was my biological father, I can't ever meet him. No, she whispered. He trembled. What was he like? Marissa closed her eyes. Kind, artistic, brilliant. He worked in foreign journalism. He was adventurous, passionate, unpredictable. He was everything I thought I wanted at the time, and also everything I wasn't ready for. Did you love him? Brandon asked. She hesitated, then nodded, a soft, fragile nod. In a way, she murmured, but not enough to build a life with him. Brandon swallowed hard. Does Donovan know about him? No, she whispered quickly. He knows nothing. Brandon's heart clenched. So he might be fighting to protect a lie he doesn't even know is a lie. Marissa looked up at him, eyes shining. Brandon, I didn't mean for any of this to spiral into what happened today. I never wanted you to question your identity. I never wanted you to feel abandoned or lied to or unloved. You are my son, my miracle, my entire world. Her voice cracked. I truly believed that the safest thing I could do was give you certainty. even if it was a fragile one. But wasn't certainty, Brandon whispered. It was a story. She reached for him again, but stopped halfway. Please, she said, tell me what you want from me now. I'll do anything. Just tell me what you need. Brandon wiped his face with trembling hands. I need the truth. All of it. You have it, she whispered. No, he said softly, staring into her eyes. Not yet. Her brow furrowed. What do you mean? I don't want stories, he said. I don't want memories. I don't want shadows. He inhaled deeply, voice steadier than before. I want a DNA test with you, too. Marissa froze, her face drained of color, and for a moment, she looked genuinely terrified. Brandon, she whispered, please don't do this. He shook his head. I have to. It won't change who you are, she pleaded. No, he said, but it will change what I've been living under. Marissa shook her head desperately. Brandon, listen to me. The door suddenly burst open again. This time, it wasn't producer. It wasn't Lena. It wasn't security. It was Isabella Terrell, his older sister. Her presence filled the room immediately. Tall, poised, powerful, composed, wrapped in elegant political polish. But her expression wasn't polished now. It was frantic, sharp, angry, protective. She slammed the door shut behind her. What, she demanded, eyes blazing at Brandon, did you do? Brandon stared at her, exhausted, broken, and for the first time in their lives, the silence that followed Brandon's unexpected collapse inside the isolated back room of the studio was not a peaceful one. It was a kind of silence that gathers mass, presses against the walls, and grows sharp like broken glass. He sat there slumped in a metal chair, his breathing uneven, shoulders jerking each time another wave of humiliation washed over him. A few feet away, the producers and handlers hovered like ghosts, unsure where to stand, what to say, or whose orders to take. No one dared step closer. No one dared step away. They simply lingered there, suspended in the aftermath of a moment that might crumble an empire. Brandon's hands were trembling. He pressed his palms against his eyes so tightly that his vision pulsed with bright flashes behind his eyelids. The sound of his own voice replayed in his skull. His crackling cry, the trembling demand for truth, the sentence that slipped out before he could catch it. This lie has to be faced. Now those words were no longer just something he said. They had become a blade slicing open everything he had been forced to swallow for years. There was no taking them back. No undoing what the world had already heard. No reclaiming the version of himself that existed 10 minutes ago. In the hallway beyond the door, muffled chaos built like a rising tide. Journalists shouted questions. Camera crews scrambled to reposition. The security team tried and failed to contain the surging frenzy. Everyone wanted the same thing, a glimpse of the sun who had just detonated the illusion of unity around President Donovan Terrell. Everyone wanted the first comment, the first photograph, the first shaky video that would immediately explode across the internet. Everyone wanted to see the boy who had broken the rules. One voice, however, was louder than the rest. Isabella Terrell, impeccably styled even when furious, stormed down the hall with an authority that could slice through stone. Her heels clicked like hammer strikes. She did not ask permission to enter the room. She pushed the door open so violently that it slammed against the wall. The handlers scattered away from her like clumsy birds startled from a tree. Her tone sliced the air in half. Brandon lifted his head, his eyes swollen and red, his cheeks streaked with the remnants of tears he wished no one in his family had ever seen. Isabella looked at him not as a sibling, not as a sister worried for him, but as a political strategist staring at an act of treason within her own bloodline. Isabella, please. One producer attempted, but she raised a single hand and shut him down instantly. This isn't your space, she said sharply. Leave. They obeyed. All of them filed out, some nervously, some relieved, some looking back at Brandon with pity disguised as professionalism. When the door shut again, Isabella turned her full fury on her brother. Are you out of your mind? She demanded. Brandon swallowed hard but said nothing. You called Dad live on air, she continued, pacing like a cage lion. You blindsided the entire communications team. You humiliated yourself. You humiliated this family. And for what? For what, Brandon? What exactly was your plan? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you didn't think past the first 30 seconds. Brandon's breath hitched. I didn't have a plan, he said hoarsely. I couldn't keep pretending anymore. Oh, spare me, Isabella hissed. You have one job in this family. One. Stay quiet. Stay composed. Stay out of the way. Do you understand how many people spend their entire lives protecting the image you just shattered? Brandon clenched his fists. Protecting the image. Right, not the truth. Isabella froze mid-step. He had struck a nerve. Brandon, she said slowly, lowering her voice as if the cameras could hear through the walls. Do not say things like that. Do not even imply. Why not? He whispered, his voice shaking again. Why can't I say what I've been feeling my entire life? Why can't I ask the questions everyone else whispers behind closed doors? Why can't I put words to the things you and Mom pretend don't exist? Her jaw tightened. Because your feelings, she said through her teeth, are not facts. No, Brandon replied softly, but the inconsistencies are. The temperature in the room shifted. Isabella's posture changed, her spine straightening, her hands folding tightly in front of her as if she were preparing to give a statement under oath. Her voice, when she spoke again, was low and tightly controlled. Whatever stories you have invented in your head, she said, end tonight. You will issue a correction. You will blame exhaustion, stress, emotional pressure, whatever the communications team writes for you, and you will apologize. Publicly. Brandon stared at her in disbelief. You want me to apologize, he said slowly, for asking for the truth about my own life? Yes, she said coldly. And you will. He shook his head. No, I won't. You don't get to say no. This isn't about politics, he said, raising his voice. This is about me. There is no you separate from this family, she snapped. Everything you are, everything you have, everything you will ever become is tied to the Terrell name. And Dad is furious. If you think I'm harsh, you have no idea what's waiting for you when he gets here. Brandon's stomach twisted. Dad's coming here? He asked quietly. Isabella's eyes didn't soften, not even for a moment. Oh, he's already on his way, she said. He's leaving the summit early, because you forced his hand. Brandon's pulse spiked, his breath shortened. His chest tightened with something he couldn't name. Fear, dread, defiance, or all three clashing violently. Good, he said finally. Isabella narrowed her eyes. What did you say? I said good. His voice trembled but did not break. Let him come. Because I'm done living like a ghost in a shadow. I'm done pretending everything's perfect. I'm done playing along. Isabella stared at him as if she was seeing him for the first time, truly seeing him. And she didn't like what she saw. You have no idea, she murmured, the destruction you've just unleashed. Before Brandon could respond, a loud knock, forceful, unmistakable, echoed through the door. Both siblings turned. Isabella inhaled sharply. That will be security, she said. Follow whatever they say. Do not talk. Do not look at the press. Do not answer a single question. But when she opened the door, it was not security. It was Marissa Terrell. Their mother. Her presence filled the doorway in a way that silenced every sound in the hall. She was composed, elegant, flawless, but her eyes were rimmed in red, and her breathing was uneven, as if she had been crying somewhere no one could see. Her gaze fell immediately on Brandon, and for the first time since he had stepped onto the stage, he felt the full weight of what he had unleashed. Brandon, she whispered, her voice trembling. What have you done? He opened his mouth, but no words came out. His throat tightened. Marissa stepped inside, shutting the door behind her with a soft click. She didn't yell. She didn't accuse. The quiet look in her eyes was somehow worse than both. You should not have done this, she said softly, painfully. Not like this. Brandon swallowed hard. Mom, please. I just wanted the truth. She closed her eyes, inhaling deeply. The truth, she said faintly, is complicated. Isabella stared at her mother in shock. This was not the version of the script she expected her to follow. But Marissa was not thinking politically. She was thinking personally, painfully, maternally. "Mom," Isabella snapped, "don't encourage this." "Enough?" Marissa said without looking at her. Isabella's jaw dropped. Marissa had never spoken to her like that. Not once. Marissa walked to Brandon and gently placed her hands on his cheeks. Her touch was warm, trembling. "You should have come to me privately," she whispered. "I tried," Brandon said, voice cracking. "You always change the subject. You always told me not to think about it. You always said there were reasons." "There were," she whispered. "There still are." He shook his head. "Mom, please, just tell me. Tell me the truth. Tell me why I've always felt like." He couldn't finish the sentence. Marissa pulled him into a sudden embrace. He collapsed against her shoulder, the tension in his body flooding out in silent tremors. She stroked his hair with a shaking hand. "I love you," she whispered. "You are my son. That is the truth that matters. But is he Dad's?" Isabella cut in sharply. Marissa's body tensed. Brandon jerked back from the embrace, staring at his mother with wide, terrified eyes. Silence. A heavy, loaded, destructive silence. Marissa did not speak. She did not deny it. She did not confirm it. She simply froze. And that was enough. Brandon staggered back as if struck. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no, no." Marissa reached for him. "Brandon, please." He backed away. "Why aren't you saying anything? Why aren't you answering? Why aren't you telling me it's not true? Brandon, why won't you just say it?" His voice cracked violently, echoing off the walls. Marissa's tears finally spilled. And in that moment, before she could speak, before Isabella could intervene, before anyone could break the spell, another knock sounded at the door, this one deeper, harder, final. Isabella's eyes widened. Marissa wiped her face quickly, restoring composure like armor snapping into place. Brandon's heart sank, because he knew exactly who stood on the other side. President Donovan Terrell had arrived,